Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Evan and John. You're listening to the Boomer and X Show.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again for this new episode of the Boomer and X Show.
What's up, John?
We're back after an extended paternity leave.
Yes, it was awesome.
On July 23rd, your daughter, Gracie Elizabeth, was born. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, the thing, we're getting ready for what we've been waiting for all year, right?
Right.
Football. Woo! Oh, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Gracie, 23rd, she was burnt.
Well, let's go over it a little bit.
I don't know. It happened. It's over with. Next topic.
It's over with. She's 18, going out of the house already.
Yeah, she's doing all kind of grown-up stuff. We actually had a shooting that same day here in Lafayette.
We did.
That's pretty crazy.
We did.
Yeah, she was 20 inches long, 6 pounds, 15 ounces, and beautiful as they come. And we got home. She had to go back the next day because she had high levels of jaundice, and then we put her under the little lamp. Man, had all kind of issues with the nursing and everything. Like, I think they aren't set up for, like, the parents to stay in the room. I think they're just set up for toss the baby in the lamp and walk out, or whatever. Because it was like they had to reset up the whole room, totally reconfigure everything. It was kind of weird. Anyways, we got over that. We were supposed to stay 3 days, and we were released after 24 hours. So that was, quick recovery.
Right.
And since, we've taken her out every day and made sure she gets a good bit of sun. And her eyes were even yellow. It was pretty scary. So I took off 2 weeks from work, and that was awesome because I was able to. Katie was breastfeeding. It took like an hour to feed the baby because she was like having trouble latching and all this junk. And we had to wake her up every 2 hours, sleeping or not, and feed her. And I'd say breastfeeding, that's got to be the suckiest thing for a woman to ever have to, take on. Because, man, it's a task. And here I am, can't do anything. So I just wake the baby up, go change her clothes if it's needed, hand her over. And that's kind of what the first 2 weeks consisted of. Every 2 hours we do that. So
what's changed?
So what's changed is we started doing express breast milk in a bottle through breast pump into a bottle.
Okay.
So I can help. I can feed her now. Gracie was chugging like crazy. So when we went to the pediatrician, we told her she's already drinking 4-ounce bottles, and he's like, no way. I'm like, yes way. And he's like, well, she's spitting up half of it. Nope, she's chugging it and keeping it down. So Katie was concerned she couldn't keep up, with the breast milk. So he allowed her to supplement with formula. So we've been putting in formula. And something what I thought was funny is she started getting real gassy. Katie was saying because she was lactose intolerant, and because Katie is, and so she was saying Gracie might be too. And I was like, so breast milk getting lactose? I don't know. Like, I guess it's not. You think milk? It's I don't know. Anyways, so it was making her real gassy, so she switched to soy formula, and that's kind of where we're at now in the feeding aspect.
Well, did the gassiness end with the soy formula?
Yeah, sure. I guess so. Oh, and now we have a new thing. It's called Thrush. Never heard of it. I might have heard of it, but I probably thought it was like somebody saying the band Rush wrong or something. But it's like she has a white tongue. And they say it's real sensitive. So we had this stuff we're putting in her mouth, and it's supposedly helping. It looks like it's helping. She's not as fussy either.
Yeah.
So she went from fussy because of being gassy, and now she's fussy because of sensitive mouth. I mean, she can't even suck on a pacifier.
Really?
It's just we implemented the pacifier too, which is something she didn't want to do at first, but
Katie didn't.
Katie did.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, she took a breastfeeding class, and they're like, no, strictly breast for like the first 6 months, and then they say kind of add whatever helps you from there, So of course we've added the bottle and the pacifier.
So they were anti-pacifier?
Yeah. They were anti anything not breast.
Going in the mouth.
Yeah.
So you're not just talking about a food source.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about
no pacifier, no bottle, no, I don't know, something about it can mess up their palate. But everything I read said it can, like after years and years and years of.
Yeah.
I had a pacifier. I don't feel like my palate's messed up. Katie had a pacifier. I think every baby I've ever seen is sucking on a pacifier. We're not running around with messed up palates.
Yeah.
So, but I did read that 2+ years of always sucking on that pacifier caused like weird teeth and stuff like that.
Well,
but,
yeah.
Yeah.
So what has been one thing that was exactly the way you thought it would be so far?
Nothing.
So everything has been different.
Yeah, and like I read 5 baby/parenting books.
Right.
And listened to baby and still listen to parenting like podcasts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I need to give a plug to he's a comedian and he's hilarious, and I actually got on his show, called in the Dad podcast. Oh, so I called in his show and I was talking about how as a new parent I am one where it's like, hey, want to go to the movies? Yeah, sure, let's go. Boom, 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 gone. 5 seconds. And now it takes. I was late coming over here today, and for obvious reasons, had to, make sure the baby was fine. And we've got Katie's mother-in-law living with us now. My mother-in-law,
Right,
living with us now. So Katie's mom, and so she's got help. It's not like I'm just ditching her.
Yeah.
But still I got to do my daddy stuff, and I did, and it takes so long to leave the house. 30 minutes to leave the house, and when Katie was pumping, it's like, okay, well, I got to feed the kid real quick, so she's breastfeeding the kid, and I'm just kind of, I can't do anything,
Yeah.
so I'm like, I'll get the car packed.
Yeah.
All right, 5 minutes goes by, car's packed. 30 minutes goes by, she's still breastfeeding. All right. So then I'll get, she'll get done breastfeeding, so I'll take Gracie and I'll like change her diaper and everything, get her in the car seat, and Katie's like, oh, well, she didn't take enough, so I got to pump now. I'm like, all right, now we're pumping. It just takes so long. And, I knew it wouldn't be the normal leave in 5 minutes that it was, but I never imagined it would take so much to just leave the house. Mm-hmm. Now I understand why parents just never leave their houses. They just, what month is it? Especially stay-at-home moms, because they just... So
the path of least resistance is just to stay at home.
Stay at home. Just don't... But Katie's been real good at... Actually, I don't want to say I've been real good, but when I get home from work, she loves going to the gym. She's a fitness nut. And I'm like, get out of the house, go to the gym. I got Gracie. Don't worry about Gracie, just to help her get out of the house. So she's been able to go to the gym. I know she wants to, but I know she also doesn't feel like she should leave.
Right.
So I'm getting her used to doing that, and she's also been taking her to the park a good bit, throughout the day and stuff. So
when did she resume? How many days after birth did Katie resume her workout routine?
Let's see. I think like 2. I think it was like 2. Because, now, that's not nothing even close but we went, because she had the jaundice.
Right.
And we were like, we got to get her out in the sun. So there's a small park real close to our house. We're new parents. We got all these strollers and cool stuff. And we're like, let's go and take her around and, show her off and whatever. And so we get all our baby junk and we put it all in. And while we were out there, Katie's like, I got to run. I was like, can you? Is it safe to even, be out here walking around? She was like, yeah, I feel like I could do a couple laps. And a couple laps she did. And I'm just there like sweating, pushing the stroller.
Right. Speaking of working out after having a baby, Katie's got a bikini competition or a fitness competition coming up.
Yeah, I think she's going to try and do one by the end of the year.
Okay.
So that's just her doing what she does.
Right.
I just make sure that when I get home that she knows she can leave and not have to feel bad.
When you've been getting home in the evening after work, has she been
Well, the past week, Gracie's been real fussy
Mm-hmm.
all day.
Right.
Just because of all the aforementioned reasons, 10 o'clock usually is when Katie's putting her down. Already given her a bath, go out there and help bathe her and everything, which is pretty fun. She actually pooped on me last night while I was giving her a bath. I was sitting there and I was like, what is this? And it was like not poop looking. It was like creamer that you put in your coffee looking. And I looked at it and it was like, what in the world? I actually pick it up and I'm like rolling around like a booger in my hand because it's like a weird consistency. And Katie's like, Evan, that's poop. And I look down and it's like all in the bottom. So that was pretty nasty.
Yeah, that does sound pretty nasty. You wash your hands before you came over?
Yeah. Took a shower immediately after. No, I mean, it's so funny. You get so familiar with poop once you have a baby that age. It's like, it's just poop.
So, with all of the reading and all the prep, still nothing was as you thought it would be.
I mean, it's just because I never experienced it firsthand like that.
Yeah.
It's I was familiar with what's happening.
Yeah.
But I'm experiencing it, so of course it's different.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah. Just for instance, I've read on baby schedules and stuff like that, and there's so many different philosophies out there.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to find what works for you.
So you felt like the time you took away from work
Was definitely needed.
and worth it.
Oh yeah, because I couldn't imagine Katie having to do any of that by herself. It would I would go home to a frazzled, wife that's ready to just explode.
Yeah.
And so definitely me being there I was able to help what little I could. I was able to keep her calm.
Yeah.
When she was getting frustrated with the breastfeeding, I'd be able to, look, you're doing a great job. Our kid's not starving, just kind of help her, calm her down, keep her level, because it was needed. I mean, I know not everybody can do that, take off 2 weeks when their wife has a baby, but if you can, do it, because it was awesome.
Well, there you go. All right, well, that's the baby update. Congratulations. We're 1 month into it.
Yeah, she'll be a month old in 2 days.
Yeah, so very, very cool. Let's take a real quick break, and then we will come back and do what you hinted at the top of the show.
Football.
Which is, what I spend my entire summer waiting for.
Yep.
So we'll come back and we're going to talk about football.
All right, let's do it.
You're my honey bun, sugar plum, pumpy pumpkin. You're my sweetie pie. You're my cupcake, gumdrop, snickums, spickums. You're the apple of my eye. And I love you so, and I want you to know that I'll always be right here. And I love to sing 2 songs to you because you are so dear.
It was either that song or like some hard rock metal stuff to introduce the football coming back. So I chose the hard rock baby song.
That has got to be the most unique
break music
going into a football segment in the history of podcasting. Are we back? Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, let's talk about
fantasy football. Yeah, we actually started we're in my family league, like me and my brothers and a couple of friends. You're in it.
Right. Going against each other.
Yeah, against each other.
Right.
And so I had a friend ask me, he needed another person, and I can't handle even 2 football leagues. So I said no, but then I thought about it. Last year, while we were recording, we kept, like, I would talk about my football team, you would talk about yours, and we're going against each other, and we would talk about that. And it's, we will still, I guess, do that since we still have that league. But I decided it would be a cool idea if we got a Boomer and X team,
right?
And we co-managed the team, and so that's what we did. And we had the draft the other day.
You and I working in tandem the way my son and I work in tandem
yeah.
in the other league. And we did. We had our draft last Sunday night for this 10-team league.
Yep, 10 teams. First time I've ever done more than 8.
And the league that we're in opposing each other is 10 this year for the first time.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're going to post our team, aren't we, on the website?
Yeah, see, it's because it's weekly. I'm gonna try and keep it up to date every week. If not, what I can do is just post it on Twitter. Yeah, easily. I
don't think it's going to change. I mean, there might be a couple of changes week to week, but
what I would like to post mostly is how we're doing. Like the person we just played, did they annihilate us? And if they did, I probably won't post.
I say good, bad, or ugly. If we're going to do it, let's do it.
Yeah, you're right.
So, just real quick, the team we drafted and we came up with, draft choice number 1, Antonio Brown.
Yep, best wide receiver in the league this year.
Well, I hope so. That's kind of the look. The reason I like Antonio Brown so much, first of all, he's extremely talented. He's not tall by any stretch of the imagination for a WR number 1. And I don't mean on fantasy. I mean in your team. Mm-hmm. He's their number 1 option. He's not tall, but he has everything else. We went with him number 1. Lamar Miller, running back out of Miami, at number 2. Lamar Miller started last year sharing time with
he's at Miami, right?
Yeah, the guy that came from Denver. And he was sharing time with whoever it was that come from the Broncos, and ended up as the year went along becoming the go-to guy. And as we were the number 2 draft in round 1, we were the next to last draft in round 2. Running backs were coming off of the board like crazy. So if you're if you're a fantasy football fan, just here we go. In the only draft I've done so far, and I have 2 left to go, running backs were coming off of the board like crazy.
Well, for real quick, for people who don't know what fantasy football is, we've gone over what the draft is on our Super Sunday episode. Sure. It is exactly like a real draft. You're the manager of a team,
right? A
fantasy team, and you're on the clock. You have time to pick, and you base it off of who you need
and who's left.
Yeah. So we're picked 19
in round 2. Yeah. No, of course, in the NFL, if you're pick 1 in the first round, you're also pick 1 in the second round, so on and so forth, unless you've traded away picks. Yeah. But in fantasy football, if you're first pick in the first round, then your last pick in the second round, and then your first pick in the third round, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So by virtue of the fact that we were pick number 2 in round 1, we were pick number 9 in round 2, overall 19th pick. So by the time we got down to our second pick,
it seemed like all the running backs were gone.
Right. The alleged studs. And this never plays out the way it's planned.
Never, yeah.
Adrian Peterson was the first one.
First overall.
Overall, that didn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Because he's
I didn't want him.
He's the one I certainly didn't want him in the first round. I think there are too many question marks. But so anyway, Lamar Miller's where we ended up, and I don't think that's a bad spot at all.
No, he's at Miami. He's got Tannehill, he's got Tannehill, who's a pretty good quarterback. He's going to need a running game for sure.
Well, and Tannehill has a lot of. He's got talent. He's up and coming because he hasn't been playing quarterback all that long. So he didn't play quarterback until like his last year at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So he's on the upswing, and
I believe he's one of those quarterbacks who needs the run to set up his passing game.
Well, and from a passing game standpoint, they have several options.
Yeah.
So that should keep teams honest and not let them crowd the box. So I think Lamar Miller is a respectable choice.
Didn't we get another Miami player? Was it our tight end?
No. Well, I wanted to get Jarvis Landry, and
that's right.
And you late in the draft, you and I were talking about grabbing Tannehill as our third quarterback for trade bait.
Yep.
But somebody got him. Like it was like round 14 when somebody grabbed him,
and then we were over there just. Cannot keep we can't keep it contained that we're about to get him.
Right.
And I look up a couple of rounds. I was like, oh,
somebody grabbed him. Yeah.
It was pretty cool how we did it because we did a live draft, a paper draft, how they call it.
Yeah.
Where you pick a player, someone writes it down, and the commissioner he got this board, just a little grid pattern with
put it up on the wall
numbers. Yeah. And so your round who goes, and got these little stickers with each player's name, and you would say, I want Drew Brees. Grab the Drew Brees sticker. Bam, slap him on your team. It was pretty neat.
So that way if the sticker's not there. Well, you should know if the sticker's not there.
Yeah, then most of the players. Actually, I think we're the only team who drafted a non-sticker
Right.
person.
So for the most part, you grab a sticker, you put it up there. If you can't find the sticker, it's because somebody's already grabbed it. So there's no mistaking and writing the name.
Yeah, double picking.
Right, double picking.
Because I think that happened one year. We picked Chicago's defense twice, which isn't a big deal. It's just, I'll grab another defense.
Yeah.
But if it's someone like you're starting, well, usually your starters don't really get picked twice. It's like people down in like round 10 and stuff where you're trying to pick sleepers and stuff. Like Tannehill, we were ready to pick him, and he was not available.
Right.
And so, yeah, when we got to Eddie Royal.
We get to Eddie Royal, and he was our 10th round pick.
There was no sticker for
There was
Eddie
no
Royal.
sticker. And you looked over and over and over again thinking, well, and then we even looked at the board thinking, well, somebody grabbed him.
Because
I'm
looking at who's left. I'm like, man, we got, this Jerick McKinnon dude who's like running back 3 for Minnesota.
Right.
And he was on there. I was
Right.
like, if he's there, Eddie Royal's got to be there because he's like wide receiver 2. I mean,
yeah. Well, he would have been 3, but the rookie got hurt.
Exactly.
So he's going to be 2 now.
Yeah.
So our third pick, and I think this is a steal, but I'm quarterback heavy in my thinking.
You are. Well, you wanted to get him round 1.
I wanted to grab him as early as possible, and then we knew he wouldn't go anywhere, so we waited till round 3. Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
And of course, I am quarterback heavy because the 2 leagues that I have played before this one, instead of being standard Yahoo scoring where a passing touchdown is 4 points, have been a passing touchdown is 6 points.
Yeah.
My experiences in my previous 2 years have been grabbing a quarterback. To me, looks very important. So anyway, we grabbed Ben Roethlisberger. And this was a conversation that we had going into the draft when you were doing a lot of mock drafts, and Ben was coming off of the board
like
average
pick 50.
right around 50, and we ended up making him pick 22.
Yeah.
And my question was then, and still is, if you look at running back and wide receiver, both of his number 1 guys are considered either 1 or 2.
Yep.
And mostly 1.
Le'Veon Bell being the running back.
And
Antonio Brown.
And a good 30% of what Le'Veon Bell gets is via the dump-off pass.
Yep. So that means
Ben's getting those points. So how the hell is Ben not considered in drafting one of the top 3 quarterbacks is my question.
I wasn't disagreeing with you. I mean,
no, you weren't, and I was just kind of posing it as a conversation piece now,
because quarterback. There was one guy who didn't pick a quarterback till round 15,
right?
And it was his only quarterback.
Yeah,
he also didn't draft a kicker,
right?
Which I don't think is illegal, but because that meant he got another running back or another wide receiver, that we couldn't get because we had to pick a kicker. But you have to play a kicker, so I mean he's got to make a trade.
Right.
But anyways, yeah. So, Big Ben, I think it's a good pick. I definitely think he's going to be the top 1, 2, or 3 quarterback this year in the league. I mean, if everything stays healthy and it looks how it is, they've got a fresh offensive line. They got rid of some of those old guys that were on there. Because I know their defense is going to be...
Their defense is going to be bad.
Yeah,
and that's another reason, if you think...
They have to score a lot.
Yeah, it's not a team that's going to be in a lot of 17, 14, or 13, 10 games.
It's going to be 31s.
31s to 28s and stuff like that. So that's, it's another reason that if I can pick up somebody on the Steelers offense, I'm going to do it. Now, one problem with that, and for all of the talking we did about let's make sure we don't get our asses in a bye-week corner, we ended up getting our asses in a bye-week corner.
Well, because you get 3 guys with bye-week 11 and then 3 guys with bye-week 5.
Yeah.
And, that's 3 key positions you've got to replace those 2 weeks. But it's not a huge deal. I remember last year you made a big deal out of week 9. You had 4 guys.
After the draft.
Right. You realized, oh, my God, I got 4.
And by the time week 9 rolled around, I had moved enough stuff around.
And you won that week. You won that week 9 that you were so worried about.
Yeah.
And you were talking about initially, I'll just take a loss.
Right.
So I'm not that worried about it. We have, rounds 10 through 16 to pick up, potential players to replace them for that 1 week, and that's what
we went on to get Andre Johnson, wide receiver, who had been with Houston and is now in Indy.
I like Andrew Luck throwing to him.
Well, yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Right. And I think Johnson is supposed to be the guy number 2, but behind T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, but see, Luck's he's going to spread the ball around much like Drew Brees does. So I'm hoping he gets at least some touchdowns, if not a lot of yards.
I like this too
because he's tall. Johnson.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's one of his go-tos. But man, I almost said Eli. Luck's got some targets to.
He does.
Got plenty of people to give that ball to.
And I think he picked up another one in Frank Gore also.
Oh yeah.
So that,
which we wanted.
We wanted. We were about 2 spots from being able to grab him. Our next choice was running back C.J. Spiller, who I believe now he's having some health issues right now.
Yeah, it's nothing serious.
But he will miss some conditioning time. But
well, that is serious, I guess.
Yeah,
because he's new to the Saints.
He's new to the system,
and yeah, I guess he's not. The injury's not going to hurt him, but missing the camp, that's going to kind of hurt his getting the reps in.
Yeah.
But as far as an athlete, injury aside, I think he's going to do awesome this year. And not a lot of people like picking Saints players because I just mentioned Drew Brees spreads the ball around so much. In fantasy, you want that player to get as much touches as possible, and New Orleans has always been a running back by committee. So
because of Spiller's size and his type, I expect him to fill the Darren Sproles role.
Third down.
Well, and I think he'll even get some return opportunities. I think he's the Sproles type player when they lost Sproles last year to Philadelphia, and I think that's the role he fills.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be ready week 1 against the Cardinals, and we'll see. I guess we'll go from there and see if we need I don't know. We'll give him 3 weeks if we need to toss him.
We'll see. We'll see.
I think he's going to do good.
Our next pick was Joseph Randle, running back.
Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas, as opposed to last year where they rode DeMarco Murray, I think he had 8,000 carries last year. They're going to be a little bit more running back by committee this year, but part of that committee is Darren McFadden, who has been injured since the day he graduated from Arkansas 8 years ago or whenever. So
he's actually got a little aggravated oblique injury going on right now.
McFadden?
No. Joseph Randle.
Oh, Randle?
But he, it's nothing crazy. These running backs stay hurt.
Yeah.
They play hurt every week. We just don't know it.
So I think I don't expect DeMarco Murray type numbers out of Randle
because they're not going to give him to him that much.
Right. But I do expect that he will be the number one guy. And against one, and running behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Yeah, which was surprising last year to us.
Yeah,
they showed up in a big way for Romo last year.
Well, the Cowboys as a whole had been, I think they'd gone 8-8 2 or 3 years in a row last year. They surprised everybody by going 12-4, and again largely on the strength of the offensive line. Our next pick and our third Pittsburgh Steeler, Martavis Bryant.
Or Martavis.
Martavis. I think you're right, Martavis. Expected to be the number 2 guy in Pittsburgh in terms of wide receivers. 8 pick, Chris Ivory, running back, New York Jets. As the year went along last year, and he started the year sharing carries with Chris Johnson, and that stayed the case, but as the year went along, it became more and more Chris Ivory. He's a real hard runner. I remember watching him some last year, and the guy is a real tough battler.
What was the term they used last year a lot? Instead of workhorse, it was like
bell cow.
The bell cow.
All of a sudden, everybody has to use the damn term bell cow. Yeah. So
he's not going to be the bell cow?
Well, I think he is.
Oh, he is.
I think he's going to be a bell cow and a workhorse, which sounds like some Greek mythological
some beast that they worship.
Then with pick 9, I think we got a steal, Tom Brady.
Oh yeah, Tom Brady. Yeah, and not only pick 9, but at the end of round 9.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that would have been early. Odd numbers.
That's right.
Yeah, 1, 3, 4, 7, 9.
Yeah, I think it was a steal too because he only has 4 games.
4 games
that
on
he has
suspension.
To miss. Yeah, suspension.
And we'll be leaning on Ben Roethlisberger, assuming he doesn't get hurt.
Definitely, but he'll replace him week 11. If anything, we've got a secondary Tom Brady, who's a starter. Not a starter, but a top quarterback in the NFL. If something happens to Ben, if he gets hurt, that's true.
After week 5.
Now, see, when we picked him up, I was thinking this is a trade magnet.
Oh, yeah,
we can use him for trade, but we do need a second quarterback.
We need a second quarterback.
So, and we almost picked up a third, like you said. We almost got Tannehill.
And
that would have been trade money.
Right,
yeah.
right. The reason I was going to grab that was going to be trade.
Because we're looking on the board and like 4 guys that late didn't have quarterbacks. So we're like, pick up.
We mentioned early in our next pick, our 10 pick, Eddie Royal, who now is looking like he will be the number 2 guy in Chicago, replacing Brandon Marshall, really, who is now with the Jets. And heaven, oh my goodness.
Why did he? I'm guessing money.
Money.
It has to be money.
It had to be money.
There's no way he thinks he's about to put together a championship over there.
No. And I understand that Cutler is a very erratic quarterback. He's very inconsistent. He can be very, very good, but he can also stink up the joint. And I know that down the stretch last year, the Chicago Bears were one of the most pathetic teams in the NFL.
They had to have been just going for draft picks.
I think they'd given up. Their coach didn't instill any.
They got a new coach,
confidence whatsoever. Yeah, John Fox,
who
had been with Denver, is now coaching over there. So anyway, Eddie Royal, now due to the injury of the much anticipated, the rookie is now the number 2 target. And again, I understand Cutler isn't going to win you any NFL championships.
Yeah.
But when all said and done, he did put up some good fantasy numbers last year.
And that's kind of how it goes.
And Eddie Royal's the second guy. So I like getting Eddie Royal in the 10th round. We got Jordan Cameron, who had been with Cleveland, is now tied in with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Picked up a couple of defenses, and on down the road, Mohamed Sanu, wide receiver. We got him in round 14. I got some mileage out of him, using him in spots last year as AJ Green was hurt.
A lot of people picked him. He's owned by 8% as of right now.
Yeah.
So it's not. I mean, when I heard the pick, I was like, well, our options aren't very much better than that. But I mean, we're looking way down the list at this point. Like, we're picking sleepers, what they call it.
Sure. We picked up Jerick McKinnon, but the next day we dropped him and got Darren Sproles, who was sitting around out there, and a kicker, so on and so forth. You and I, actually more so you than myself, made some observations about how we feel.
Fantasy play
in general, and following the rules and the spirit of fair competition.
First of all, that's what a commissioner's for.
Right.
But our commissioner has never played fantasy football in this league that
we're talking about right now. This will be our league to talk about this year. Right.
Yes. Okay. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do with keepers? Which is someone you keep for next year. And he's like, what's a keeper? So when he said that, I was like, what? Just that right there. Asked when the playoffs. Didn't know when the playoffs were. So we've got that. Then we get into more detailed things like, what about a can't cut list, which is something you brought up as a rule before we even drafted the first player.
They got shot down like a
duck
at an NRA meeting.
We'll just be men about it. We won't, because what the can't cut list does is it keeps me from dropping
great players.
It keeps me from dropping Antonio Brown.
Right.
So you on another team can pick him up for free.
So we can work in collusion.
Exactly.
Right.
And so we don't have that in this league. We do have a veto system where if someone tries trading of that magnitude, like a stupid trade, we can veto it. But I don't know how many people have to actually vote against it for it to go down. Do you know?
I do not know.
I'm guessing since there's 10 of us, at least 4 maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. And it may be a veto of 1. I just don't. I don't know, because I've never in my previous 2 leagues, I never really was worried about shenanigans the way I am in.
Because while we were drafting, guys who were going against each other, they're on separate teams.
Right.
They're going against each other. They're over there like covering their mouth with paper, talking to each other, whispering. Me and you are doing the same thing, but guess what?
We're a team, and we went in that way.
Exactly.
We have one team.
We pay for one team. We're trying to make one team win.
Right.
And so we've already seen Kelvin Benjamin, ACL tear.
Right.
Gone for the year.
He's done for the year.
He's
done for the year.
Somebody traded a torn ACL tear player for 2 very healthy, good players.
Right.
Guess what? We vetoed it.
we voted to veto it.
Yeah, we voted.
Yeah. So a 0 player for 2.
Exactly.
A 0 for 2.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
That tells me somebody has a fake team, and they're trying to pad another team.
Exactly.
And
exactly. So we are on to you.
If you're
listening, we're on to you.
And that might not be what's going on, but if so, call in. We want to hear your side of the story.
Yeah.
But the way it looks is very sketchy.
It does.
So
it does. So we invest.
Call us
right.
skeptical. Call us. We don't know any of these people too to add to the list.
Right.
Well, we know the one guy.
Right.
And if you're listening, these are his coworkers. So
that's tough.
You got some sketchy coworkers, buddy.
Yeah, that's tough.
But
we're telling the world.
We'll do our best to win, and win or lose, we're gonna talk about whatever. If we lose because we see shenanigans, we're not gonna make up the reason. We're not gonna. No, but as it looks right now, it kind of looks like we're going up against 9 other guys, and a couple of them are cheating.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely looks that way. So we're on to you. We were willing to invest $25 for the ride, but
the way it splits is winner gets 200 and the second place gets 50.
Yeah. So for the next 17 or 18 weeks, you are going to be talked about on this podcast.
Your characters will be broadcast among the tens of masses we have listening.
Anyway, we're going to have some fun with it, and if there's shenanigans, we're going to talk about it.
And
if we lose straight up, I don't have a problem with that.
I think it's fun to talk about it because that is part of fantasy football. I've heard of other work leagues that guys get together and they make their own leagues, and this happens. It's just something that happens in fantasy football. Now, like I said, the commissioner can stop it, but he's got to be a good commissioner, and we have a brand new guy. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He might even be in cahoots. Who knows? It happens. Some leagues, they pay $100 to get in.
Well, the other league I'm in is a $125 league.
So if you got somebody doing this, you even think about it. You go to the commissioner. Hopefully he fixes it.
I was in this league last year and watched, and the commissioner is strong, and I certainly believe
runs a tight ship.
Yeah.
And that's what you need.
Yeah.
So, it happens. We're not the first people that have experienced
And I'm not
this.
going to put $100 into a league that I think that's a possibility, but I will put $25 into it just so that you and I can have something to talk about it on the show. Yeah.
And maybe get $200.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Because, of course, me and you split that 80-20, right?
Yeah, by the percentage of research that went into it.
You're the brains. I'm the, I don't know. I put the stickers on the board.
All right, so we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and we'll just talk a little bit about some football in general, aside from the fantasy stuff. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, ready or not, we're going to talk about we're going to do a college and NFL football preview. This is our first real football, I guess, since the draft day in early May. This is our Boomer and X football preview. So let's start with college.
So college, we're in LSU land. Let's talk about LSU.
Now, here's a surprise.
They need a quarterback.
Exactly. LSU has questions at the quarterback position. So the reports coming out of camp are good, but I believe what I hear coming out of Les Miles' mouth about as much as I believe what politicians say. So we'll see. In terms of who's getting the reps, and who's getting the play, it seems like Brandon Harris is getting more of the first team.
Well, which
reps.
one's in jail right now?
Well, nobody's in jail. I mean,
that's right.
They.
What was it? What were the charges?
It got in. It's gotten to the point with me where it goes in one ear and out the other. Yeah. Oh, an LSU football player is in trouble. Or it seems to happen in groups of 3 or 4 with LSU.
Yeah. So, dude, Alabama got a lot of guys.
They're
in trouble. They're in trouble with the law.
In trouble with the law, right. But we know how it works with big-time college football players. I mean, everybody's going to bend over backwards to see to it that that they're not really held accountable. That's not what this show is about. Yeah. So let's assume that Brandon Harris, the sophomore, the true sophomore, will take over the starting job from Jennings. I think if he does that, then that's a move in the right direction. I still don't expect great things out of the LSU offense, but we'll see. They do have a good.
I do. I think they got a pretty good squad this year.
Well, they do have a good receiving core.
If they have a quarterback making plays, they have championship chances, I believe.
Well, and you're not the only team. You're not the only person that thinks that. I'm just going with. Here's what I'm looking at: the trend in the LSU's team's production and output over the past few years hasn't been good.
Well, what's the issue, Coach?
I think it is. Look, when you have Ohio State that won a national championship last year with their third string quarterback, and LSU can't find a quarterback, and it has been an ongoing thing for years, then I'm going to say it's not the kids, it's the coach or the coaching staff.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Definitely they've been on a lull, and he picked up from Saban. You think a lot of people say he just won with Saban's team.
I'm gonna disagree with that because he's been there 11 years.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that the 2007 championship when Saban left in 2005. I don't want to go there because you get credit for winning a championship if you win a championship. You may not get credit for bringing those players on board, but you won a championship.
That's true.
It's what has happened since 2011 that bothers me.
What's that?
Well, first of all, 2011 was the season. If you look at the scores that LSU won games by and the high rankings of those teams that they beat, if you just look at the scores, up until the national championship game, which was one of the ugliest things in the history of football.
They just gave up.
But before that, if you look at the scores and the rankings of the teams, it was one of the greatest seasons in all of college football history. They were beating top 15 and top 10 teams by 20 and 30 points on a regular basis. It was
a tough schedule that year.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. They were not only winning by big margins, they were beating very good teams by big margins. But if you dig a little deeper and look at how those games unfolded, especially late in the year. I was at the LSU-Arkansas game in Baton Rouge where they finished the regular season to go 12-0. That game was ugly until it was broken open, until it was flipped on a special teams play by Tyrann Mathieu. And then the momentum was grabbed and it went the other way. But until that happened, that game was ugly. The SEC championship game, same way. LSU's offense could get nothing going. Then it was flipped on not one but two great punt returns by Tyrann Mathieu. The momentum switched and everything went well. In the national championship game, in which LSU's offense produced about as much total offense as I did that night, there was no such magical switch to flip.
Yeah.
And when that didn't happen, we saw in fact, the joke was that the bus couldn't.
No, the one I heard was LSU got a new field. It's just 50 to the end zone
because LSU didn't cross the 50-yard line until something happened. And even with all of that, until late in the third quarter, I believe the score was like 9-0 based on 3 field goals. So it was all defense. So there were, even though that season was going well, if you look at the scores, there were offensive issues.
So what changes in the coaching staff do you think needs to happen?
Yeah. I think you start at the top.
Yeah,
I think you start at the top. But what I do like, and who's actually getting a little bit of Heisman Trophy talk this year, is Leonard Fournette.
Yep.
The very, very talented sophomore running back. And I don't expect him to win a Heisman this year, but I believe that LSU's strength will be in their running game, and that's no real big surprise. I think the strength will be in the running game. I'm excited to see what Leonard Fournette does with another year of maturity behind him, and I think that will be the most exciting thing to watch LSU-wise this year.
Yes, definitely. He'll be the bell cow.
I believe he will be the bell cow and the workhorse.
All right, so speaking of head coaches, we have a new coach in the Big Ten.
The University of Michigan hired for me, is the most exciting hire in a while for a college program, and that's Jim Harbaugh, who had been with the San Francisco 49ers. first of all, even before he went to the 49ers, he had turned a Stanford team who had been nothing forever. He had turned that program around and made them a top 10 program with huge victories, including I still remember back in 2007 when they beat USC, who was ranked number 1 and a 40-something point favorite. Stanford beat them, which, along with what LSU was doing, catapulted LSU into the number 1 ranking, at the time. In fact, my son and I were in Tiger Stadium watching the LSU-Florida game when the results of that game were announced in Tiger Stadium, and that was a very interesting moment. But so anyway, Harbaugh goes from Stanford to the NFL at San Francisco. If I remember correctly, he took the 49ers to 3 straight NFC championship games, including 1 trip to the Super Bowl, which they lost to Baltimore, who was coached by his brother, John Harbaugh.
Yeah, and that was an awesome year for Baltimore. That's when they were running that no huddle and no one could handle it.
Well, if you win the Super Bowl, it's an awesome year.
Yeah,
and that was the game that was played in the Superdome, and the power went out. I don't know if you remember that or not, but the power went out in the Superdome during that. So anyway, Harbaugh then, and from the way things went last year in San Francisco, it almost looks like he was being undermined a little bit, because I think they wanted to make a change, because I believe Harbaugh is kind of a my way or the highway kind of guy.
Kind of looks like that.
And that works a lot better in college than it does in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you have GMs and owners, and everybody wants to get their finger in the pie in the NFL. And I think if you have a strong presence like, say, Harbaugh or Nick Saban, and we saw Nick Saban had 0 success in the NFL, by the way.
Yeah.
So Harbaugh had more success in the NFL than Saban did in the NFL. Mm-hmm. My point is I think Michigan instantly became very, very relevant on the national scene with the hiring of Jim Harbaugh, and I will watch that with great interest.
What year is it LSU's playing Michigan? Next year?
No, they don't have Michigan on the schedule. They have Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin. That's right.
Starting next year, LSU. Not starting next year, but next year, the starting game, the first game of the year next year.
What do they call it? It's an actual.
Yeah, it's a game. Yeah,
it's
a
game,
game, but it's one of those like kickoff classics or something. It has a name because what it is a game between 2 major programs, kickoff classic or something like that. It's played at a neutral site.
Anyway,
okay, so Harbaugh at Michigan, I believe, makes them relevant on a national scene. Of course, Ohio State now with their A, they're the defending national champion. B, they have more great quarterbacks on their roster right now than LSU has had in the past 40 years.
I was wondering when they won last year, are they going to start that third string guy?
They're saying probably not. They're saying probably not. But it'll be very interesting to see. And, of course, also Michigan State, one of these underappreciated teams that has been very good several years in a row now. But so I think the Big Ten is very, very interesting, very competitive, especially in the upper levels of it, and I look forward to watching that. But you mentioned the Wisconsin game.
Yeah.
Next year, of course, last year, if you remember, LSU played Wisconsin in Houston in whatever Minute Maid Stadium or Tropicana or whatever kind of orange juice, whatever stadium. Next year, and I'm actually doing everything I can to go to this.
Yeah.
Next year, LSU opens with Wisconsin in Lambeau Field. And I want to go see a game in Lambeau Field. So I am planning a trip early next September up to Green Bay / Chicago to see LSU play in Lambeau Field. But anyway, that's the game you were referring to.
Yeah.
And that starts the 2016 season.
Mm-hmm.
That wraps up our LSU and then our kind of our Big Ten look.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to talk about, something you mentioned, is the divergence in quarterback from college to NFL. You were saying we have 32 teams, right?
Yeah, 32 teams
in the NFL. So we
have
32 teams in the NFL, and half of them have worthy quarterbacks.
As I look down through the rosters, that's what I see. Half of them, and maybe not even quite that, have quarterbacks that you feel like week in and week out give you...
That's an NFL quarterback.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an NFL quarterback. And I'm not talking about a guy that can go out against a crappy team and throw for 400 games and then turn around next week and throw 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
I'm talking about someone who consistently gives you excellent quarterback play and leadership. And it just seems like with college football being the biggest it's ever been, being the most popular it's ever been, and therefore you have to think receiving more resources than it ever has, why can the college game not, when you have 120-something major colleges alone, and that doesn't even count the guys down in Division I AA, why can we not produce more NFL caliber quarterbacks?
I believe that's like the toughest job in the world.
Well, certainly in sports,
as far as athleticism,
right?
goes.
In sports, NFL quarterback is the toughest job. And as I've thought about this, here's the answer. The only answer I can come up with: there's actually been a divergence in the two games. The NFL game it's obviously from a quarterback standpoint is very mental. Mm-hmm. It's very mental. But the college game, what do you see more of now than you saw 10, 15 years ago? The
running back?
The running quarterback. The running quarterback. Dual threat.
That's true.
Quarterback. And actually here are the two terms, dual threat and pro.
Yeah.
Those are the two terms.
Something I noticed last year in the NFL is the dual threat guys didn't do too great. Actually, the last 2 years in the NFL, dual threat guys aren't doing great.
Who was a dual threat guy? RG3. Now his first year was great.
They just weren't ready for him, I believe.
Right.
And now they are onto him, and he can't do anything.
Well, and
he tried passing more than he should have and stuff like that.
Well, and Washington has a poor offensive line. They just do. I don't think they have a good situation there. But RG3 was a flame out after a very, very good rookie year. Let's look at another dual threat quarterback, Johnny Manziel. He comes out. He was kind of projected to be a top 5 or top 10 draft pick. Fell all the way to the 22nd pick, and really didn't deserve to be picked there. Was a complete non-factor last year for the Cleveland Browns. So you've got a wasted first-round draft pick as it looks so far. And so kind of back to the bigger picture, I just think that these dual threat guys are never going to be as successful in the NFL as they are in college because your defensive linemen are so much faster. Your defensive backs cover so much better. And a lot of those balls, when I would watch Johnny Manziel play college football, and I'd see him scramble around and then throw up a prayer that more often than not landed in the arms of one of his receivers. Yeah. In the NFL, more often than not, is going to land in one of the arms of a defensive back. Yeah,
he was just sitting there waiting.
Right.
So we have Mettenberger. He's kind of, I guess, going to disprove or prove our theory. He's getting the ball this year. He is not a scrambler by any means.
He's a statue.
He's a Peyton Manning. He cannot scramble at all. So do you think he'll prove us wrong or right?
Well, I don't necessarily know that Mettenberger's success or failure will really prove anything, but I do think that his story, especially since Tennessee drafted with the second overall pick, Mariota, who certainly is expected to be the guy down the future,
definitely
down the road in the future.
I think it's a great year for Mettenberger to show what he's got, though.
I do,
and he is in the preseason. I mean, he's already showing he has control of that team. He knows the offense.
I believe Mettenberger to be a very underrated quarterback. The problem is I believe him to also. He will take a lot of hits, and I think he will be, whether he's just injury prone naturally, or whether he will be injured because he's going to take a lot of hits. I'm not sure which is which, but I think his main problem is staying healthy. I believe
because the guy's got a cannon.
Not only that, but he throws very accurately too. I mean, when his last year at LSU was a very, very productive year. Yes, he had Odell Beckham Jr. and yes, he had Jarvis Landry, but
you've got all those guys in the NFL. I mean,
but you got to get the ball to them.
That's true.
You have to get the ball to those guys. And I believe Mettenberger's underrated. I think he will start the year as the starter in Tennessee.
I hope so.
With Mariota then coming on, and my guess is it'll be brought about by injury. Yeah. That's my guess.
So what is the fix for these? Do we stop doing dual threat quarterbacks?
Here's the deal. I'm not sure there is a fix, and I'll tell you why. Because colleges are in a competition to put a winner on the field. And if they have to do so with gimmicks such as running quarterbacks, they will do so because they want to fill stands and sell tickets.
So they're not doing the job of getting this kid ready for the NFL.
Because they don't see that as their primary job. They see winning any way you can.
I got you.
As their primary job. Because a coach is not going to be able to hang on to his job because he put a quarterback in the NFL. He's going to be able to hang on his job because he won 9 or 10 games that year.
Yeah.
And so therefore I think what we're seeing, the divergence between the NFL and college as a long-term issue. I think there will continue to be a scarcity of NFL-caliber quarterbacks in the NFL. That's my look going forward for that particular issue.
Okay, so let's get on to some NFL specifics.
Yeah.
Let's, I guess, talk about the Saints. I mean, you love the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Steelers fan, yes.
We are in Louisiana.
Saints territory.
Saints territory.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Saints. I mean, even when they were the Aints, that was when I was a kid.
My favorite teams are kind of 1 and 1A, and that would be Pittsburgh and New Orleans.
I guess I was just like, what state do I live in? Okay, that's who I like, and I would just...
Well, sure, yeah.
What do you think of our Aints? Are they going to be Aints this year, or are they going to be the Saints?
They're not going to be the Saints that won the Super Bowl. But I mean, they're not. I don't think they're going to be the Aints either. I think they have issues on defense that I'm not altogether sure have been addressed. Offensively, Breeze last year made a lot of mistakes. He threw a lot of interceptions.
Yeah, in our league we just did, he went pick round 8, I believe. It just shows he's not the guy.
Well, yeah. Now
I was surprised he went that late.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this: he was one of my top 3 or 4 quarterbacks.
I was about to say top 5, definitely.
He's one of my top 3 or 4 quarterbacks.
But
I'll say top 4.
Last year, it seemed like he, I don't know, he had to run more. He had to dodge more.
He dodged a lot, and that led him to making a lot of poor decisions. Exactly, he threw a lot of balls up that got intercepted.
And I don't know if it's all his fault. I mean, I know you're a professional quarterback. You got to make something happen with it, but you can't do it every down.
Let me say this
every other down.
Let me say this about Breeze, and I don't want to be perceived as knocking Drew Brees at all, because not only do I love him as a player, but I think he's a great guy.
Okay, so you just gave him an awesome compliment.
So here we go.
So
Drew Brees, any ball he throws more than 40 or 45 yards down the field floats.
Yeah,
it just does.
That's true.
And
so
believe me, if I've noticed that opposing defensive.
So is he washed up? Is that
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you don't really. They can draft all the speedsters they want, but it doesn't help to have a guy running down the field 60 or 65 yards
when the defense knows.
Well, when you can't get the ball to him.
Yeah, good point.
Breeze has lost some arm strength, and I don't know that arm strength was ever his biggest thing anyway. Accuracy. And intelligence.
But his accuracy is off because of all the running around he's having to do.
Right.
And he's not a good runner. I'm not going to give him the title of good runner.
No, he's a pro. He's a typical pro-style quarterback. I believe that the Saints' best days are behind them, and I hope I'm wrong about that. But I just, and they lost Jimmy Graham, and I don't know. Now, he wasn't nearly as productive last year as he was the year before.
Not at all. I think their offense is okay this year. I think their defense needed some stuff. And you said this already. They didn't do what they needed to do, I believe.
Well, and by okay, do you mean, they're going to be fine, or
I think they'll
do
okay?
Because the past few years, they've been far better than okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'd say they do as good as they did last year.
Well, okay. All right. Well, okay. All right. We'll see.
Probably not any better, but...
And I don't...
We had a weak NFC South last year.
Oh, my God. It was terrible. Everybody in the division kept losing and losing and losing.
And they were, what, third? Fourth
it was
in
bad.
that division.
It was bad. What else was bad? They lost a lot of home games. They just kept losing home games.
Yep. Tough losses, man.
Yeah, and every week you thought, well, here's a chance because the other people in their division have lost. They turn right around and lose, and so
it was sorry.
I'll be surprised. I'll be pleasantly surprised if they, let's say, if they make it to the playoffs and make a run. They may make the playoffs.
They may. Say that.
I'll be surprised if they make it there and make a run. I hope I'm wrong, but that's how I feel about them.
I'm right there with you.
Now,
what about Philly? I mean, not Philly. Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, I think, will have one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. Last year, they kind of came out of nowhere because when you think Pittsburgh Steelers, you think defense.
Yep, and that's kind of the opposite I'm feeling this year.
Last year they had a very, very bad, very poor defense. Look. Actually, Troy Polamalu is old, and he's finally retired. Or moved on anyway. Just age and Ike Taylor, just age. Age has caught up, and guys being drafted and not fulfilling the same promise as some older guys
on the line.
Just all over. They got burned a lot. They got burned a lot by big pass plays.
But their offense, they've got Le'Veon Bell, they have Antonio Brown. We mentioned him, and those two especially in the fantasy part of this.
Right.
So what else do you like about their offense?
Ben Roethlisberger.
Well, Big Ben, yeah.
Big Ben was putting up bigger numbers last year than he has in his entire career. And I believe that if you're going to adequately assess what the Steelers are now, you have to get out of the mindset of defensive-dominated football and get into explosive offense. They're going to put a lot of points up. I think Pittsburgh will be very exciting to watch. They're in a tough division with Cincinnati and Baltimore.
Yeah, they
did win that division last year, but then they turned around and they lost their first-round playoff game because Le'Veon Bell, I think largely because Le'Veon Bell was hurt, because he got hurt the last regular season game of the year last year. Pittsburgh, I think, will be a lot of fun to watch. I think if you're playing fantasy football, having Pittsburgh Steelers on your squad will be a good thing. But defensively, I believe you will be able to run all night and all day against the Steelers, and they probably still will give up some big pass plays. I just think that they will have to score a lot to win, and which is not, I don't think, a recipe for a Super Bowl champion. I do expect them to make the playoffs.
I was about to ask if you thought they'd have a good or bad year.
I expect them to make the playoffs. I do, and I think they'll be a lot of fun to watch. But I don't think they have a defense that they can win a championship with.
All right, so I noticed this while we were doing the draft the other day. We were somebody would pick a player, and people were like, "Oh, too soon. That team sucks," and all this. And the teams they were saying, I didn't always agree. Were there any teams that you thought people were saying was sucking and like underrated, or I guess underrated? It's an underrated team.
Underrated team. I believe the Dolphins.
Miami?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Miami. I believe Tannehill is on the rise as a quarterback. And by the virtue of the fact that he slipped to like round 14 or whatever in our draft, I think shows that he's underappreciated. I believe they will have a solid running game headed by Lamar Miller, but will be somewhat running back by committee.
Yeah,
they've put new receiving weapons in place. They got rid of Mike Wallace, who has underachieved everywhere he's been. He was with the Steelers before he was with the Dolphins. He's now with the Vikings. Mike Wallace is one of these names that people like to draft, and I just don't see it. I don't get it. I understand he's fast, but he's never lived up to the hype. I believe Miami will be an overachiever. I believe that the St. Louis Rams, based on the strength of their defense, will be a tough team to be reckoned with.
They have a new quarterback.
They do have a new quarterback. They traded with Philadelphia, didn't they?
Yeah. Actually, I think they did a quarterback for quarterback trade, right? They traded away Sam Bradford, and they got
Nick Foles.
Yeah, so they traded away Sam Bradford and got Nick Foles.
And I believe you're right. I think it was a quarterback for quarterback trade.
Yeah, and so do you believe that trade right there alone helps them out? Or?
No, I think what they accomplish will be on their defense and running game. You remember they took Todd Gurley this year, but he's coming back out after a major injury. I believe that they will rely on him late in the year and not so much early in the year. But they had, I'm pretty sure they have Trey Mason on their squad, and he was an excellent running back at Auburn. Last year, as he was learning the system, he seemed to come on late. Mm-hmm. But mainly what I like about St. Louis is defensively. Yeah, defensively. Yeah. They really tore some people up last year, and they had some big signature wins also last year. I also think that the Raiders may be somewhat respectable. I believe that Derek Carr is somewhat of an underrated quarterback, and I expect that the Raiders, I'm not saying that they'll be a playoff team or anything like that, but I believe that they won't quite be the laughing stock that they have been.
Underachievers?
Yeah.
Well, let me just say a couple that
sure.
I think Detroit Lions are my underrated team.
So you think they will do better?
I think they'll do better. They won 11 games in 2014, and despite Calvin Johnson pretty much not showing up at all, I think he's going to do better this year. Let's see, they got rid of Ndamukong. What's his name? Ndamukong.
Yeah, he's with the Dolphins now.
Yeah. But they replaced him with Ngata Haliotti. Just as good, I believe.
Just as tough to pronounce the name.
Yeah. So, he's no slouch. He's definitely just as good. So I think with Johnson back at full strength, with that improved offensive line, I think I just think they're underrated. Another one, and I know you're going to disagree right here, the Jets. Underrated.
You think they're underrated?
Underrated. Even with Geno Smith at quarterback, is he quarterback?
Keep in mind that he's won't be starting the year as quarterback because he's got a broken jaw.
And I've been there. You cannot play football with a broken jaw. But whoever's quarterbacking, they have Brandon Marshall, Devin Smith, and as their wide receivers, and then they got Zach Stacy and Stephon Ridley, who's I think underrated also. Defensively, they were already strong.
They were.
So
they were. Now, here's what bothers me about that. They got rid of a very, very defensive-minded head coach.
That's true. So you're thinking their defense won't be as great this year?
Well, I think there's some issues. Now, they drafted well. They drafted well defensively. I just overall, without splitting it into offense, defense, I don't really expect a whole lot out of the Jets because from everything that we've read about this account of Geno Smith getting punched and his jaw broken, he was acting like a complete ass.
No leadership
whatsoever. Yeah. And I don't think that bodes well for an NFL squad.
That's true. Now, I'm not going to say they're playoff worthy. I'm just saying I think they're underrated.
Okay.
Because they're like at the bottom of every list I look at, and I think they deserve to be a little bit
better
higher
than that.
So that's, I don't think they're, because the defensive alone and those players I mentioned is I believe going to get them, a little higher than the bottom of the barrel.
Well, they're in the division with New England, which is tough.
Yeah, that's true.
Miami, which is, I believe, an up-and-comer. And the Buffalo Bills, which, interestingly enough, they will play their old coach twice this year.
Yeah, that's true.
They will play Rex Ryan twice. He will certainly be very, very, very motivated in those two games.
Yep.
So, as far as overall AFC, are they one of the worst teams? I don't know, but I think there's a real good likelihood that they do finish at the bottom of their division. But I don't expect a whole lot out of Buffalo either. But I think that's a tough division with Miami and New England.
Okay, the overrated. What are we thinking?
I'm going to surprise you with saying the Denver Broncos.
Really?
John Fox is gone. There's a coaching change.
That's true.
John Fox is now in Chicago.
And I haven't looked at – yeah, that's right. I haven't looked much at the changes he's implementing. Like, is it –
Gary Kubiak is a good offensive mind, certainly. But what bothers me is that they have a very, very, very young offensive line. And true, they do have Peyton Manning, and that's a very big plus. Even though
he's a coach on the field.
He is a coach on the field.
But man,
he is. I agree.
It's like he's my favorite NFL player, but it's almost like he's just a ticking time bomb. Like, when is it gonna
down the stretch? Last year was not pretty.
It was not.
It was not pretty.
That's what gives me this mindset. Is it now? Is he washed up? That's kind of. It didn't look it last year, but
washed up is a strong word.
That's true. Let's see. Washed up, tired.
Well, he's up there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's up there in age, and I certainly
he was playing like a tired old man.
He was late last year, but we did see a shift in philosophy last year when they were in the red zone, when they were down really close. C.J. Anderson got the ball a lot, which made him a very, very valuable fantasy hold down the stretch last year, and I think he will be again this year. I believe we did see a change in philosophy,
and I believe what I have heard of the new coaching, they're leveling everything out like a 50-50. Peyton Manning's not going to be throwing as much as he was last year.
I just think Denver will be one of those teams that may disappoint their fans this year. Also, from a fantasy standpoint, nothing against Demaryius Thomas. I believe he's one of the most talented players out there.
Yeah.
But if going deep may be an issue for Denver this year, if you've got a bad offensive line, there may be a lot more dump off. There may be a lot more underneath stuff. And as we saw Peyton Manning's
it won't be the team
arm
we
last
used
year.
to. Yeah.
Well, deep is Demaryius' biggest threat.
And I think it'll be, like you said, a lot of dump off. Marching it down the field is their thing.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
I think it will be.
8-10 yards at a time. That's kind of
it's
going to be a long year for the Denver Broncos.
I think you win games in the trenches, and I'm not sure from an offensive line standpoint, Denver is going to be all that great.
I believe they're playoff contenders.
Yeah, well, yeah. I certainly think they're playoff contenders, but I'll be surprised to see them deep in the playoffs if they make it. Look, 2 years ago, they were on the wrong side of one of the ugliest Super Bowls we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then what last year they made the playoffs, yes. And I think John Fox is an excellent coach.
Yeah, and
Kubiak was as great as an offensive coordinator. His head coaching resume isn't impressive. So, we'll see how it goes, but I'd be surprised to see Denver be what we've come to expect Denver to be over the past 3 or 4 years.
Overrated for me would be Dallas. Everyone is starstruck with that offensive line they had last year.
Okay.
But they don't have Murray anymore.
True.
That right there is makes me believe. And they lost Murray. I don't think they replaced him.
Joseph Randall and Darren McFadden.
That's right.
Right, Darren McFadden.
All right, so
an injury waiting to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they replaced him, but they didn't fill his shoes.
True.
And the offensive line is still going to be as strong as it was last year, I believe, but that line still has them starstruck with, they're going to be – they surprised a lot of us last year.
They did.
And
so you think a repeat of a 12-4 is not going to happen?
I don't think so.
I tend to agree with you.
They lost Murray and they lost some steam in doing so, I don't.
Well, and let's look at their division, teams that we know that they're going to play twice. The Redskins aren't but there's the Eagles, who are strong, and the Giants to me represent a real conundrum. Is it defensively they weren't good last year, but offensively with the emergence of Odell Beckham Jr., Victor Cruz will be back. Ruben Randall can be a good target, although somewhat inconsistent. If you look within their division, how tough do you see that being? But I tend to agree with you. 12-4. If I were to go over under this year, I would go under.
Yeah. I would. I mean, another thing that kind of makes me iffy is they got that All-Pro defensive end, Greg Hardy, and he's got like a pretty lengthy suspension, and it was like, okay, good, he's gonna help out, but I don't know. I just think with Murray took a lot of the load off of Romo last year, and now we're gonna see Romo have to do more. I think.
I agree. I agree.
So,
and from a other than Dez Bryant, from a receiving stand, Jason Witten, the tight end, is now like 75 years old. And so, other than the big target, Dez Bryant, who's the real go-to guy that's going to take heat off of Dez Bryant? And we also know that the minute things aren't going well, Dez Bryant is going to lose his mind. So
it was a catch. Well,
I'm not even talking about that play. He just loses his mind in general.
That's true.
On the sidelines,
he's got a short fuse.
He's already been in a fight this year. In camp.
That happens.
I know it does, but we sure see his name crop up a lot in not good ways.
I think he wants it to be brought up a lot.
Really?
I think he does.
Well, if that's his priority, then I don't want to build my team around him. I'm just saying.
That's true.
I'm just saying.
But you're talking about a 80-year-old billionaire who, for whatever reason, loves Dez Bryant.
Well, I'm not even going to get into Jerry Jones. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. 12-4 is the I would bet the under.
You can't lose Murray and and keep that record.
Now, the Cowboys did get the absolute steal of the draft, and it wasn't even a draft because the very, very, very talented offensive lineman out of LSU, La'el Collins,
yes,
who had the incredible misfortune of an ex-girlfriend of his met a very unfortunate and untimely demise right
day
before the draft.
Come on.
And his name starts thrown all over the place, that he had something to do with it, and there was a baby or an unborn baby and all this kind of crap. And so he went from being a high first round draft choice to not getting drafted at all.
Ain't that
his
something?
name is cleared,
and
he signs a free agency contract with the Dallas
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Missed out on how many millions?
Untold.
Poor guy.
Untold millions. So
I think
the steal of the draft.
I think it's pretty low. So Jerry Jones and his crew came all the way over to talk to the guy and figure out what's up. The Saints, they're right there.
Yeah.
And they didn't even make a trip down the road to go talk to this kid. They could
didn't.
have gotten him as easily as Jerry Jones and them
They
did.
could have.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. So I'm not a Cowboy fan. I'm not a Jerry Jones fan, but I am a La'el Collins fan.
And he's going to do some things.
I think he is too. So there's the steal of the draft right there.
That's
and
true.
It wasn't even a draft.
It wasn't
pick.
even a draft.
So there we are. There's our Boomer and X college and NFL preview. Going forward, it's been a month since we've been here.
Yep.
Understandably so. Going forward, we hope that it won't be a month again, and I don't think it will be.
No, I mean we're
settling into a bit of a routine.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a routine because we got the baby and got to schedule stuff. Because used to we could just be like, hey, after work, want to record? Let's do it.
Right.
So
right.
We're getting it down. We're going to get that schedule down. Definitely going to be football heavy episodes.
It will be
but we'd like to keep, I'd say, 3/4 of it football, and then kind of try and hit with some more history. Yeah. Trying to learn something every episode, like
even though it's football season, going into football season, and that's my favorite sport, and that's your favorite sport. We're not going to turn this into a sports show.
Yeah, and we've said from day one, we're average Joes.
Right.
We do some research, but we're not even close to being a pro talker of footballers.
Nope. But we are going to follow our fantasy league, shenanigans and all.
Yeah, and I'll keep our website, theboomerandxshow.com, updated pretty with, I guess, pictures and at least a list of who we have and how they did. At least that.
Yeah. So
and I'm very easily keep up that on our Twitter. Way easier to do that. It just takes a while to update the website every week.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do like a monthly update with the whole screenshot of everything for that week or for that month.
But you will be able to follow the fantasy thing.
We'll pretty much keep our team published at all times. What's going on?
Yeah.
And we'll also keep up with the shenanigans going on.
That's right.
The alleged shenanigans.
Yeah. If we see something that looks fishy, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
That's why I put my $25 in.
Yeah. Put it up for a poll. Is this fishy?
Right.
A guy
who just
Kevin Benjamin.
Right.
And then trades
a 0 for 2. A 0 for 2 trade.
All right. So I believe I'm done. You got anything else to
I'm done.
talk about?
Look, guys, we appreciate you hanging around and coming back, and we know it's been a while, but thanks again for being listeners, and we're going to keep on keeping on.
Oh, yeah. Y'all take it easy.